Welcome in, everybody, to another week of UFL Weekly. I am your co-host, Kyle Krajewski, joined by the beautiful, the lovely Zachary Cole. We're here to talk some UFL, but before we get into that, Zach, how you doing, dude?
I'm doing well. I got my 10 weeks lined up in a row for me starting at the end of March. I have a little more clarity in my life. I think you do too. So let's chat about it.
Let's chat about it. Some housekeeping before we get into things. We're finally officially going to be weekly. I think we've been a little bit here and there the past few weeks, but we're here. Zach and I finally nailed down scheduling times that works for the both
Mhm.
of us. And you can look forward to these uh, podcasts and videos being released Thursday mornings, wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube.
Mhm.
Um, I'll fair warning, there may be one or two Fridays jumping in there instead of Thursday. Life gets in the way, but look forward to our content coming out weekly because that's how we do things here. Weekly. Thursdays moving forward.
Mhm.
Um, Follow us on Twitter primarily, UFL underscore weekly. You can find us on Instagram as well, same at UFL underscore weekly, but I don't post there as often, but Twitter for sure, or X. Find us on YouTube and podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching this, you can listen to us. If you're listening to us, you can watch us.
Mhm.
Um, but let's get into things. We had a big week, long week actually. Um, we had stadiums officially announced, which then really just streamlined right into schedule announcements, which is huge. And then just today, as we're recording this, there were a few lingering rule things kind of outlined by Daryl Johnston, head of football operations. And we're going to kind of highlight all of those things for this week. And next week, we'll kind of bring you something else similar. I'm hoping to do a deep dive into all of the rules once those are officially released.
Right.
But currently, we're getting bits and pieces, and that's how we'll kind of be doing this. So, without further ado, stadiums officially announced. I think for the most part, a lot of these teams are sticking where they were last year,
Yep.
USFL and XFL. The one primary change was where the Houston Roughnecks were going to be playing.
Mhm.
But that is officially this year, they'll be playing in Rice Stadium, which is a weird fact. The only university stadium. There's a few, I don't know which one specifically off the top of my head, but there are a few that are used by universities. But Rice Stadium is the uh, Rice University Stadium. Birmingham Stallions are in Protective Stadium. Memphis Showboats, Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium, and Michigan Panthers are playing in good old Ford Field. Go Lions. And then the XFL division or XFL conference, Arlington Renegades are sticking at Choctaw Stadium, DC Defenders at Aldi Field, and San Antonio Brahmas back in the Alamo Dome, and St. Louis Battlehawks in the Dome at America Center. Really cool to see that. I mean, all of these are pretty much sticking the same and staying in the same spot. Houston kind of finding their home at Rice Stadium.
Yeah, Kyle, let's chat about the XFL conference here first. Just out of familiarity a little bit. I think it was kind of cool to see that they kept these four venues specifically for these teams. I don't know if it played any sort of role in deciding which teams were going to stay versus which teams weren't staying. But I mean, when you look at these four venues that they decided to keep, I mean, the Alamo Dome, the Battle Dome, which they filled to the brim last year. They set all
Yeah.
kinds of attendance records and everything. Audi Field with the beer snake and everything, and even Choctaw Stadium with formerly being the Texas Rangers' home. It kind of still feels like they're finding use for that field. Now, now that the Renegades make that their home, do you think it played any role in their decision at all?
I would think that specifically Audi Field and the defenders, I feel like that probably played the strongest role of any of these.
Hmm.
I feel like them being the primary and only Northeast team here uh,
Hmm.
kind of really helped be like, oh, they have a strong fan base here. That stadium is fueled. We saw with the lemons being thrown on the field last year that there are fans in DC that love this football team. And I mean, I feel like you'd be I feel like protested if you took football out of St. Louis again. So I felt like when they were kind of figuring out teams, I felt like the Battlehawks staying in St. Louis, or a team being in St. Louis, was a given, because man, they love that team. St. Louis loves football, and they finally have a football
Mhm.
team, and they embraced them. So I feel like of the two, those two specifically kind of had a stronger like, nah, these cities deserve their teams.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And then on the other side, it's kind of cool. You alluded to Rice Stadium and Protective Stadium. Actually, UAB plays there as well. So both kind of sharing that college theme. But with Memphis and with Michigan, the Michigan Panthers, I mean, those are two huge venues. I mean, the Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium, where the Showboats are going to be playing their home games, holds over 58,000 people. And we already know Ford Field is home to the Lions, so that obviously can bring in a massive crowd on any given weekend. So it really kind of seems like they're trying to set this up to be a big major fan attended sporting event. And I mean, I'll have to take a little bit of a look here, probably while you're talking, at the ticket prices and things. But I would assume that
If it
they're
helps you, tickets aren't announced yet. I think those go on sale. Oh, I have the date. I might have it in the show sheet
okay.
later this month. So we have
Okay.
another 2 weeks, I believe. I think the 23rd.
Okay. That
Um,
makes sense.
but for XFL fans joining the UFL universe, unfamiliar with the USFL, um, the USFL worked last year primarily. I think in 2022, their season, they played in one stadium. I believe they were in Birmingham the entire year. So every team, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, New Jersey, they played their home games in Birmingham. I believe it's Birmingham. Please correct me if I'm incorrect. We're coming from XFL side as well. But 2023, they expanded and they played in four stadiums. Ford Field being one of them. The Hall of Fame Stadium, Protective Stadium sticking around, and Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium. So three of these four have already housed USFL teams and stadiums, or teams last year. Um, so I think that kind of helped them have that relationship moving into this year.
Hmm.
And then Rice kind of being the new one. So a little bit of a USFL tidbits for XFL fans joining in here, and for USFL fans tuning in. Thank you for bearing with us. We are XFL fans jumping in here. Please, again, correct me wherever I am incorrect.
Yeah.
I'm not here to be, I'm all knowing and always correct. Neither of us are.
Hmm.
Um, we're here just to be fans of spring football and the UFL. So correct us where you can. We're here to learn with you, and we're just trying to educate as best as we can. Uh, so thank you for that.
Yeah, and I think we're just gonna get more and more comfortable
Oh, for
as the
sure.
season goes on, and we can tie some faces to teams and really kind of make some memories with each of the teams. Right now, we're kind of just it almost feels like we're talking about this abstract concept that we don't really have any grasp of yet. With really not knowing or having watched much of the former USFL. And being primarily XFL guys. So I think once we get this underway, the official UFL underway, and we see these teams take each other on. And I think that'll really kind of put some context into it. But speaking of taking each other on, Kyle, the schedule was also announced.
It sure was. They announced the full schedule. And I think the most beautiful thing here is that the UFL announced kind of came up with the schedule grid, which
Hmm.
is beautiful to look at. And if you're watching, I'm going to post it on the screen right now so you can look at it while we kind of
We're
discuss a little bit of the
we're
schedule.
big visual guys here, Kyle. Right? We love the
Big
visual.
visual guys. But if you're listening in, it's not, don't worry, you're watching, I'll retweet it, or it's findable. Look up UFL schedule
Right
grid.
on their UFL page. Yeah.
But it's basically just all the schedule.
Hmm.
Um, but let's break it down. Let's chat some things out here. Um, quick highlights here from the UFL schedule. Season kicks off Saturday, March 30th, at 1 p.m. on Fox between the Birmingham Stallions and the Arlington Renegades, the champions of the two divisions.
Hmm.
I love that. I think that's an incredible way to kick off this league.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Get the champions from both leagues. They knew what
Absolutely.
they were doing, and I'm so thankful they did that. Um, the rest of the opening weekend matchups, we have St. Louis Battlehawks at Michigan Panthers, 4 p.m. on Fox. So both games that Saturday on Fox. And then Sunday, we've got Defenders at Brahmas at noon on ESPN. All times in Eastern time, just a heads up. And then the Memphis Showboats at Houston Roughnecks at 3 p.m. on ESPN. So Saturday games, week 1 on Fox. Sunday games on ESPN for week 1.
Kyle, now looking ahead, I'm absolutely fired up for these first week of games, but I can't help but to look ahead to the next 2 weeks following specifically. I'm really looking forward to seeing in week 2 Arlington plays St. Louis, and then in week 3 Arlington plays DC. So I mean, they are running the gauntlet right off the bat. I feel like the UFL is trying to make them prove. Last year they ended up winning the championship after being kind of a middle of the pack team all year. I think the UFL is really trying to make them prove, like, hey, are you guys legit, and can you come out of this stretch either 3-0 or 2-1? So it's cool to see that they're challenging them right from the get go.
Yeah, they really want the Renegades to kind of prove their
For
prove
sure,
who they are.
for sure, yeah.
Um, and if I'm remembering correctly, I'm blanking on it. I think they had a losing record going into the playoffs.
Oh man, I want to say they were either
Yep,
five
they
and
were.
five.
Nope, it was worse. They were 4-6,
Oh,
and
geez,
they
yeah,
locked in that second seed in the South Division, right behind the Roughnecks. Yeah,
man.
the poor. Actually, the Battlehawks are the ones that got snubbed at 7-3, third in
Right,
the North.
right.
But
Yeah, and I think I don't want to jump too far ahead, but I do think that they kind of did some stuff as far as the tiebreaker rule goes going into this season. I again, we'll talk about it a little bit later, if not next week. But I know some people were really upset with how that season wound up, where a 4-6 team managed to tie break their way into the playoffs over a better 7-3 team. Not necessarily a head to head tiebreaker, but based on the playoff seeding and the rules, ended up getting in over what many consider to be a worse team or a better team, I should say. So just kind of interesting. But on the on the USFL side, actually, Kyle, they only took one team with a winning record from the USFL. I'm taking a look at it now, and the Breakers, actually, one of the teams that didn't survive, were 7-3 last year, the New Orleans Breakers, but the Stallions were 8-2. The Gamblers, who are now the Roughnecks, were 5-5. The Showboats were 5-5, and then the Panthers were 4-6. So it's a little interesting that there was not as much success in these remaining teams as we saw in the teams from the XFL side. But still, I think that there's a lot of good competition amongst those 4 teams, especially when you consider that the entire player pool got dispersed across these 4 teams.
yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting. I mean, this is two separate talent pools.
Hmm.
Um, but again, I'm just pumped to see how this all plays out.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
it's we're in for the ride, and I know you guys are too, you listeners and you viewers. So it's going to be a blast. Um,
Absolutely.
moving forward, let's chat more about these. Maybe not specific games, but kind of highlighting the inaugural season schedule details. In total, we will have 43 games this spring from the UFL. That is 40 regular season games, 2
Hmm.
conference championship games, and the big game, the big
Hmm.
championship game. Each team will play 6 in conference games and 4, I guess, interconference games. So USFL teams will play each other 6 times and then 4 games out of conference. or play the XFL teams 4 times. Um, the conference championships, there's going to be one for both sides, will feature the top 2 teams' best records in those conferences. So the best 2 records in XFL conference face off, best two best 2 records in XFL. So USFL and XFL, best 2 teams face off, and then they go into the championship from there. A little bit interesting looking at timings, scrolling down through the schedule, compared specifically to the XFL, which was genuinely all over the place time wise.
Mhm.
We've got a little bit more consistency this year. Every game is a Saturday or Sunday, where the XFL we saw Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday games. And for the most part, early games start around noon or 1. I think there's one 4 p.m. somewhere. Week 8, I see a 4 p.m. And then afternoon/evening games. A little bit here and there. There's not every week there's going to be a primetime game. There's some 8 p.m. primetime games on ESPN. But for the most part, it's like a 4 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock afternoon games, some 7. So a little bit, we're floating between 7 or noon and 8 p.m. for all of
Mhm.
these. And oddly enough, I hate this. I hate that schedulers do this. A few double ups, I guess, a few games at the same time. Specifically, I'm seeing week 4, Defenders at Birmingham, and Panthers at Brahmas, both at 7 p.m. on Fox. I think Fox has the schedule incorrect. I might be looking at the wrong thing here. Unless they are showing both games at 7 p.m. Saturday, April 20th
It
on
could just be
Fox.
a location-based thing, kinda like the
I did see that they were going to try that out. So
interesting.
you might be correct there, because there's another one. Week 5 has another double up at 7 p.m. Um, there was another one, 2 at 2:30 on week 9. So there's a
You know
few double ups. I think you're right that they are doing regional. Forgot I saw that, but
And
yes,
I'm gonna guess it's probably an attempt to boost ratings a little bit. I think that they're kind of thinking they can get more people to tune in to 2 games at the same time slot if rather than 1 game, if that kinda makes sense. They're
yeah,
more so, I would say, worried about just total viewership as compared to who's watching what game.
yeah. I think you're right. And they probably have predetermined uh, evening programming. So Fox, being kind of like a majority media holder here, probably said, "We'll double up here. We'll take those at the same time." I
Mhm.
bet Fox had a lot of say in a lot of these schedulings.
Yeah, and it seems that Fox is far and away the most, yeah, Fox has, it looks like 21 games that they're broadcasting, followed by ESPN at 11 and ABC at 10. So Fox is more or less kind of dominating the broadcasting rights here. I mean, obviously they're all sharing them, but I see some FS1s in here too. So it's even more than just that whatever number I said, 21 or whatever.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, really cool, I'd say, that the XFL's relationship with ESPN and ABC kind of stuck around for USFL's relationship with Fox, and they kind of
Hmm.
merged. Fox still kind of being the primary holder here, media wise. Um, Kind of, I mean, getting a majority of these games this year.
Yeah.
But yeah, games are on again ABC, Fox, ESPN, Fox Sports 1, ESPN 2, and um, then I'm obviously they're going to be on streaming. If it's on ABC or ESPN, I believe they're on ESPN Plus, and then Fox Sports will be showing those Fox games.
Yeah.
Um, Broken up there, fun.
Yeah, and Kyle, I don't want to get too far away from our UFL talk here, but I don't know if you saw today on Twitter there came out some news about a potential sports broadcasting platform coming in the future, which is
I did
interesting
see
because
that.
a couple of these networks were actually mentioned in that. So, what are your thoughts on just that potential of a streaming platform overall, not even in the context of UFL, but what do you think?
Oh, we're talking. This is it. ESPN, Fox Sports, and TNT are in talks to have their own singular sports app, kind of merging between the three of them, which is actually huge for the sports landscape, just sports viewing specifically. Because I was reading something this morning about the people who subscribe to YouTube TV for, call it, $70 a month for strictly sports. They may
Mhm.
tune into one other thing throughout the year, but they're on there to get the live sports. If they pay half that price and just get the sports, uh, easy. That makes sense. And
Absolutely.
it's one of those things that audience exists. That audience is us. That audience is you guys.
Mhm.
Um, it it's interesting. It's really cool in a sense of like consumership of like, oh, like just sports. Thank you. But also like, man, another thing to sign up for. But in
Yeah,
the
right?
meantime, it's like another thing to sign up for, but also probably allows you to unsubscribe from something else and save some
Mhm.
money.
Yeah, and
Um,
it's when you
fun.
really kinda think about the big picture of it, Kyle, they're gonna be getting Monday Night Football, they're gonna be getting UFL games, they're gonna be
Yeah.
getting March Madness when you tie in the TNT, they're gonna get NBA on TNT,
Yeah. I
like,
think a lot of college
it is
football too. Yeah.
huge. Yeah.
Yeah. Bonkers that these, and I think I saw that these can all be bundled in with your Hulu, your your current subscriptions pretty much.
Mhm.
Um, Bonkers that this is going to exist and most likely exist. Um,
And affect the
Crazy.
UFL in the near future.
For sure. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a this year thing. If anything, it's
No,
going to
right.
be a fall thing that they put
Mhm.
together. Um, so UFL 2025. Let's watch it on Sports Plus.
I was to say, as much as we love UFL and it's our shining star in the night sky, I would assume that ESPN and Fox are probably planting their flag in the NFL or college football a little bit
I
more than an
wonder.
experimental spring league.
Yeah. Although I wouldn't be surprised if like this UFL media combo probably sprang up
Yeah,
these talks. I wouldn't be
kind
surprised
of
if they were like, "Oh, we're merging here. Let's merge elsewhere and
kind
everywhere
of took
else."
some
Let's do this.
enemies and put them in the same room together, right?
Hey, if the UFL is what brings all the sports entertainment together, I'm in.
It's
It's
a
like
league of peace.
oh, I think it was. It's like the This is going to be such a weird analogy, but like when I don't know if you remember the dictator or not the dictator, the interview.
Oh,
When
yes.
when North Korea was really upset about it. So there was a bunch of Sony stuff that was leaked, and that sprang up the conversations that Marvel Studios was having for Spider-Man to join the MCU. And it's like, oh, all because James Franco and Seth Rogen got North Korea angry. We got Spider-Man in the MCU. It's like that. It's like the UFL is the interview to sports, I guess.
And Fox, and the merger is Spider-Man somehow.
The merger is Spider-Man. This Sports Plus app that we're gonna get is Spider-Man in the
That's
MCU.
good stuff. That's awesome.
All right, back to UFL. Few things came out today as we're recording. Daryl Johnston, head of football operations of the UFL, kind of sat down on. Um, should have had this prepared. Sat down on a podcast, which podcast that was, and kind of gave answers on two big questions that were kind of surrounding the adoption of certain rules that the UFL will be having,
Mhm,
particularly the kickoff and the extra points, because the USFL and XFL had two different versions of those two things. Um, for starters, the kickoff, the UFL is going to be using the USFL version, which is the kicker is kicking off from their own 20-yard line. So average starting field position for return team came out to about 37 and a half yards, which in terms of like choosing to return is good because then you get better field position. You're returning it earlier. It's not getting touchback. Um, the thing is, though, is that everybody really liked the XFL version of it, which
Mhm.
was preventing a lot of like high impact, fast impact uh, on these kickoffs. So there's a little bit of sad people right now that are like,
Yeah.
oh, the XFL, like we were so close to getting the NFL to adopt the XFL's version of this,
Mhm.
and then we can't even get the UFL to adopt it. So I think that's the stance I'm at, where it's just like, oh, the XFL had something there, something different, something that worked. We saw several returns last year, or I don't know the exact number. It might actually just be one. Either way, we saw. I liked it. I loved seeing it. I loved the difference it was.
Yeah.
And then just kind of going back to let's just kick it differently. Let's kick it from a different yardage.
I think for years and years we've always heard that the kick return is one of the most exciting plays in football, and I think in the NFL we've really kind of nullified that play to the point where you don't hardly see any returns anymore. So I think the XFL had something really special, like you mentioned, Kyle, where we were seeing returns for touchdowns, and it was an exciting play, but at the same time, it was safe and it was keeping the player's best interest in mind. So I like what they did there, but I understand it. I get that maybe it's not fully fleshed out and ready to rock and get pushed onto an NFL scale. But on the other hand, I am happy to see that they are still hanging on to the XFL's extra point system that
Oh
we
yeah,
so much loved last year and saw some great moments from. And that is to remind everyone the 1, 2, and 3 point plays from 2, 5, and 10 yards, respectively. So that's exciting. I'm fired up that we're going to get to kind of see that again. And we talked about it a little bit on the former XFL Weekly podcast, but it just kind of really reinvents the scoring system in the game where 9 points is one possession, 8 points is no longer one possession. So it just kind of almost, I don't want to say complicates things, but makes things more exciting.
yeah. The opportunity to score 3 points on an extra point, I love so much. We saw it a few times last year, where teams down 10 um, or even more were using it as their opportunity to um, kickstart a comeback or really close the gap. Um, it was, I loved it. I loved the option to have just go for three after you score the touchdown.
Hmm.
Or gain the lead. I think we saw that a few times where it's just like, oh, we've got the lead. Let's cut it. Let's make it longer. Um, and then I mean, I think the other thing to mention there is that there's no kicking the extra point.
Hmm.
Um, Kicking extra points are gone in the UFL currently. It's just offensive plays. You're going for a score on 1, 2, or 2, 5, or the 10-yard line.
Yeah. And in a weird way, almost, Kyle, I think it's unique and a little concerning for kickers in the NFL. If this is kind of where people if this is kind of where people want to see the game go and they want more exciting plays, and people seem to make kickers the scapegoats for everything, including fantasy football losses. I don't know. It's just kind of it's a little concerning that um I don't know. Maybe I'm going too big picture here, but I think with eliminating the kick extra point, it's just one step closer to kind of eliminating the kicker position altogether. But again, like I said, it's I don't want to get too big picture.
Yeah,
But go ahead.
same thing. Similar to, I guess, them choosing the UFL kickoff. I saw some people upset with just not like completely removing the option of allowing a kicker to kick an extra point, whether that's just the 1 point extra
Hmm.
point, have the kicker kick that. Because I mean, we're seeing it now in the NFL. I mean, particularly from the USFL. Brandon Aubrey was a
Hmm.
USFL guy, and it's one of those things where are are the extra points really, I mean, yeah, I guess the extra points are the, I guess, what you're looking for, the accuracy, the consistency from these
Hmm.
kickers. And to see, I think Aubrey went 32 for 32 in the USFL on extra points. So like that consistency means a lot. And to remove a good chunk of why kickers are added onto the field really takes away those opportunities for those players. So
Yeah,
completely understand it
I
from
think you made a good point there, that it's just I think sometimes we understate the importance of the kicker, and I think that if you have a great kicker that's automatic, like a Justin Tucker almost, it
yeah.
it makes that 1 point just a guaranteed thing, whereas in this 2 point, 3 point, 1 point scoring system, it kinda takes away that certainty.
Yeah. And then jumping back, Daryl Johnston talked about all this on the next round, which was a live
Okay,
kind of show that was taking place earlier today. Jumping back to the source of all this that I grabbed this from and properly attributing that. Um,
nice.
but yeah, kickoff going USFL version, extra points or going XFL version. And that's what we got today. I'm sure tomorrow, actually probably throughout the week and next week, with all the hype around Super Bowl, football's on everybody's mind.
Mhm.
We're going to get a lot more of these rules and announcements and just fun stuff kicking off from the UFL side.
Yeah, that was the last point I was gonna make is just we only know little chunks at a time right now. So as more
Yeah.
rules come out and as we start to learn more, obviously we'll convey that to you guys. Don't just think everything is gonna be same old because we haven't hit it yet. I think some of the kinks are still being worked out.
Yeah. And to kind of show things today, UFL PR actually just tweeted there are no UFL transactions today. So no one was added, no one was released today. Shout out UFL. Um,
The Brahmas must
but
have finally ran out of roster spots.
the UFL stepped in. They were like, "Stop! You gotta stop! You
Yeah,
gotta
that's enough.
stop!"
Stick a fork in it.
Um, but yeah, we'll have a rules breakdown show when we kind of
Mhm.
get confirmation on all the rules. We don't want to just announce 2 rules and say, "All right, that's the show. We're waiting on more." So look forward to that in the coming weeks. Probably early March, definitely before kickoff.
Yeah.
Um, but that's coming up. All right, Zach. I think that's it for this week. Next week we'll talk. We'll talk some UFL. Don't you
Yeah,
worry. We'll be your
absolutely.
guest.
There's plenty of good
Um,
stuff to talk about, right?
oh, always is. We'll put something together. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining us this week. We're here just to chat some UFL weekly. So, again, thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this, comment, like, subscribe. Leave us a review if you're listening podcast wise. 5 stars really
Mhm.
helps. Or 1 if you hate our guts. Totally understand. But preferably 5. Um, that is it for us this week. We'll talk to you next week. Zach, it was a pleasure.
Always is, my friend.
And thank you for tuning in. See you next week.
See ya.